what was the initial state of the IT environment?
They were really working in silos. There was no real services approach. One of the first things that we did is actually define them as set of services to say, look, this is the business we're in, to educate all those teams that, we're going to start working in a more of a services environment now. They were very reluctant to move towards good practices, but we knew that they needed to do that to scale. The service desk was getting smashed. There was multiple calls, answering the same question many times. Even little things like automating password resets, they hadn't even considered anything like that.
Joining us today is Kirk Penn, a certified ITIL expert and Six Sigma Green Belt. He's the founder and CEO of Service Management Specialists, a Sydney-based ITSM consulting practice. So you're in Sydney now, so what time is it there?
It's just in the early evening. It's just gone 7 p.m. So yeah, great to be on board. Thanks, Mark.
Nice. Yeah, late one for you then.
Not quite just yet, but this is how the day goes.
So Kirk, do you want to give our viewers an introduction to yourself and your company and tell us a little bit more about how you got into cloud and AI?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast with you, Mark. Yeah, really excited about this. Look, I think, I've always been in process. So I like to see things that are perhaps not working. And then I think it's the way that I've been wired. Try and kind of use that analytical piece to kind of make things, optimize things or drive some efficiencies from it. So that's led me to a career really in process and just looking at things, how can we make them better? And then obviously you want to start to combine that with, service and technology and now even AI. There's some really exciting parts and, that's really what we do each day. So founded Service Management Specialists. We really focus in on the service management part. So that's the customer experience, the controls that sit in behind IT. Back in 2010, and it really sort of came out of me working on large projects and working on complex projects, specifically in the service management space, and getting more calls. So I really needed to expand and scale out, really. So that's when we started to bring other consultants in to help me, and we built a practice. And yeah, look, we help a lot of organizations in this region, mostly with complex issues that they need to close out. So yeah, that's really how we're continuing to grow.
Great. And I understand you got a bit of a story about how businesses can use cloud native and AI to fuel growth.
Absolutely. So one in particular for us, a customer, they are a large real estate company. When we first started working with them, 4 years ago, they were very much immature in terms of how they were operating, in terms of their IT operations, day-to-day operations. I think at that time, the CIO, she said to me, Kirk, I know people are working. I know things, we're not in major incidents every single day, but I just can't see anything. I have no dashboards. I have no reporting. I have no real insight into terms of how our performance is going. So we started to delve into that and have a look at their maturity. I think, we kicked off quite a large program of work, looking at their service desk right through to how they're running their operations, through change management, through release management, through what the business was asking from them as well. So this led to a 4-year engagement, really, where we took them on the journey from, I guess, just getting those foundations in place, optimizing their service desk, driving some efficiencies through that, right through to implementing, a new ITSM platform, and then leveraging all the features, the functionality, and the more modern ways through AI and chatbots. So it's been an exciting journey. We've now got into that platform 240 plus requests. They're really optimizing the way in which they run their day-to-day operations.
Great. And what was, when you started, what was the initial state of the IT environment at the real estate company when you first engaged with them?
Yeah, look, they were really working in silos. So we had multiple teams, doing the best they could with what they had, but there was no real, I guess, services approach. So they didn't have a real understanding about how does all of this tie together to support the business. So it was one of the first things that we did is actually define them as set of services to say, look, this is the business we're in from an IT perspective. And then really start to educate all those teams that, we're going to start working in a more of a services environment now. They were very, I guess, how can we say, reluctant to move towards, we needed to work, but we knew that they needed to do that to scale. So that was really important. Yes, a low level of maturity. Give you some examples for example, in the service desk, the service desk was getting smashed. There was multiple calls that were coming into them. They hadn't really worked out a way in which, they could scale things out. So they were answering the same question many, many times, which resulted in calls coming in, which really wasn't efficient at all. They had way too many service desk folks on that service desk taking calls, getting smashed, all those kind of typical hours, first thing Monday mornings. Even little things like automating password resets, they hadn't even considered anything like that. So, when we started to look at the demand, what we did is we really tried to identify quick wins where we could start to alleviate some of that demand and then be able to look at some more of those strategic things like, well, how can we put, things like chatbots in place? How can we uplift the knowledge articles, things like that? So coming from a very, very low level of maturity, and the business was frustrated. There was a recent, at that time, typical business survey teams came in very, very low. So really partnered with that CIO to really have that improvement program underway.
Nice. And what would you say was the biggest challenge you faced in the early days of transforming their IT landscape?
Absolutely. Look, there was a few. There was obviously the overall, I guess, feeling that IT was that they weren't going to perform. There was a low level of performance. So I guess that credibility was one of the first things. The second thing is actually just getting the IT teams to sort of step out of the way that they were working to embrace this new way of being able to service that customer. So bringing that customer closer to the IT teams. They were the classic situation where the IT team was kind of like behind these doors and on a level where it was like a cost center, and they just kind of did things, but no one really understood what they were doing. But we really needed to bring that IT team as an enabler to the business, and obviously technology was a really large piece of that. So the platforms that they chose were really future-proofing them, because we knew that the feature set were going to be were really going to drive a lot of value. So it was really just about, I guess, sequencing those things, bringing the teams up to understand that, we're going to go through some maturity, almost kind of not talking too much to the business, but giving them an understanding that, good things are on their way. We're underway with some performance uplift. And then also, I think working with the vendors, technology partners to say, well, because they wanted to drive all these new features as soon as possible. And we just had to kind of hold them back a little bit until we got our foundations in place as well. So probably juggling the ball more than anything, I think, is probably the best challenge, Mark, in terms of just kind of keeping all those things in sequence.
Yeah. So what, was this a bit of a technical hero mentality you were encountering? And how did you address it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Look, and that was really evident, when things broke or we had major incidents, there'd be at least perhaps one or two from the various technology domains that would come in and sort it all out and be the hero. Whereas, what we wanted to do is just observe how they were doing those things and then take some learnings from the way they were doing things. And often, when things did break or they had disruptions, they were the result of, things like unauthorized change. So, they were just sitting there, okay, we're going to make this change, so they make the change, not really understanding the upstream or the downstream impacts of that change. So these are typical kind of behaviors that I can see you nodding your head because, you've obviously been through some of this yourself as well. But it was just those kinds of things that we needed to kind of observe and then move in and say, look, these are the behaviors we're seeing. And there's a level of formality that we need to apply to these things to really, bring them into more of a scalable way of working.
Yeah. It's something we've experienced in the past where we've had like these technical heroes who they're really good at solving technical problems, but the problem is they're not so good at sharing the information with others and being able to bring everyone on that journey with them. So they're good in some ways, but also it can be challenging to then get everybody onto the same level working together as efficiently as possible. So you mentioned deployment of chatbots as well. So
Absolutely.
obviously something that's very close to our heart at Firney. But how did this technology impact the overall service desk operations?
Absolutely. Had a significant impact. And the reason for that is obviously around reducing calls into the service desk because, we didn't refresh. We basically rebuilt that whole self-serve capability. And having low credibility from the business, and then just saying, oh well, you need to go to this portal and sort it out yourselves, wasn't going to be, the right, I guess, theme that we wanted to talk to the business about. So we knew that we're going to get one go at that. And so we wanted to make sure that when we did send them to a self-service portal, that it needed to be credible and that it needed to have some depth with it. So at that time, we're talking sort of 3 years ago now, we knew that the success was really in the quality of the knowledge that we were going to put into the chat box, that we're going to prepare those. Fast forward to now, and even having conversations with you, with AI and being able to generate that kind of knowledge, we've taken it back in 2 and 3 years ago. It was very much about the quality of that information that we could then share with the chatbots to actually present that data back, because that really was all it was back then. It was just presenting that information back to the customer when they had a theme or something that they were searching for. But it worked, and so we spent a lot of time on developing good quality knowledge articles, putting personas in place. Just because we talk a certain language doesn't mean to say the customer's asking for this. So that was really important, that we really put those and made it a very, very seamless experience for the customer, until we could then unleash some of the technology and the feature sets from the technology and the vendor to come in underneath it and really start to drive some of that AI that we've got in place today.
So in what ways have those quality knowledge articles really enhanced service delivery across communication channels?
Yeah, look, I think there's a couple of things. One was, when a customer's going to the search bar on the portal and self-service, and they're typing in a theme, one of the things we did was we differentiated between information share or knowledge articles and things that were requestable or orderable. Because were they searching for an answer, for example, I need to restart my laptop, or I need to do something, or am I actually asking something here? Am I asking for a new screen, or am I asking for something? And being able to differentiate those, what we did was we put little icons on the different types of information that was presented back to that customer, and it made it really, really successful. So not only were we now being able to answer questions, but we're also giving them a pathway to be able to order things and request items as well, and a really nice experience.
With that, what tasks have you automated and that essentially resulted in significant operational improvements? And how did you go about kind of identifying those tasks?
Yeah, sure. So look, the big one for us often is, and when we start to automate things, we look at it in terms of requestable items that are presented to the customer. And we look at it like this. We look at it, is this going to have a simple workflow behind it, a medium, or a complex? And typically those simple ones, perhaps one approver that it needs to go to, one fulfillment team, and then it's fine to be sent off to the customer or provisioned for the customer. In contrast to more of a complex request that the automation may need to go through perhaps 2 levels of approval, depending on the delegation. And then perhaps it may need to go to multiple teams to be fulfilled. So being able to automate some parts of it, sometimes there's some manual tasks that need to be done. So I think a really good example would be things like onboarding of new folks coming into an organization is a great example, where we've got technology that can automate a lot of the technology aspects around provisioning and access and things. When we get perhaps a flight company that they need to sign up to an airline partnering company, can take different pathways. So being able to tie those together in a single experience for the customer, but automate as much as we can. So it's typically the way that we'll look at it. Is this a simple, is a medium, or is it a complex workflow? And tying that back to what I was talking about before in the example for the real estate company, they've got 260 of these now, and they've all got multiple levels of workflows that we've been able to either automate or be very clear about the parts that still require some manual intervention.
And what about in terms of incident handling? What do you use for prediction, prevention, and how has that transformed the way you do incident handling?
Absolutely. This is a super exciting part. And there's a couple of things there. I think first of all is just this whole event correlation. So in our world, events are not necessarily something broken yet. but they're alerts and monitoring. So it's important that we've got some business rules around understand, what do we need to do with this event? Or do we need to take action, or are we in the middle of something that's just gone down? And I think that event to incident correlation is super important, and I think this rules really around those. It's the first thing. I think the second thing around incident, being able to do this thing called self-healing is super exciting as well. So yeah, I mean, we were just working with a vendor actually just last week where they were talking to us about the ability to have their platform go out and look across the network, obviously, and find things that are going to be potentially impacting a set of customers or a set of users, and being able to then use use bots to actually go off and analyze that and be able to apply those self-healing or those fixes to it even before the user has logged on for the day. So that is just super exciting. And that's really, 3-5 years ago, we weren't talking much about proactive incident management. We were talking, incident management, reactive, disruption, action, restoration. Now this whole kind of self-heal, this ability to be able to go and scan and bring back information and apply some logic to it, even before a user has used that service for the day, is exciting.
Yeah. We've done quite a bit on Kubernetes over the years, and we've built some of these large websites, and it's just gotten to a stage now where we've got security fixes being automatically prepared. So all we have to do is click merge. We've got like hard disks and processors. The moment there's a fault with them, essentially they're being replaced in the back end without us doing anything. It's all managed by the cloud management, and it's all done automatically. So they just get a little notification that says they need to go and change a hard drive, which is just completely different to the way things used to be with old VMs or even before that, bare metal servers.
Absolutely, and these big old lines that were either at some service desk or you're on the phone, and it's like, no, we already know what's going on, and we're presenting this to you. So it's a game changer.
Yeah. So before the call in your comms, you mentioned a Gartner CX pyramid. So how do you utilize that framework within your AI and ITSM strategies?
Absolutely. So Gartner's now got a pyramid that they're using to be able to, I guess, score, that user experience. And we've built our own internal methodology that is similar, but we've been using this for a little while, and it's what we call our modern service management approach. And it's a bit broader than just the user experience. So it's for organizations that are looking at what is it that we actually need to do over the next perhaps 6-12 months to become, really move towards the operational excellence. And so it's obviously self-service is huge. Being able to provide really quality self-service that's reliable, that users can go to either get the knowledge that they want or be able to order things and interact. And we want to be able to automate that as much as we can as well. So that's the first thing. I think second thing is just the key controls. So ensuring that you've got your compliance, your regulation controls in place so that when you keep component to it. Third one is really about setting up an automation framework. And so this is obviously where you want to explore as much AI as possible. But what we're finding is that the vendors and the technologies coming in at organizations so super fast that we often talk to our customers about putting a framework in place that they can actually take demand from the business. So what's our biggest areas of demand? And then perhaps how can we utilize technology that's coming at us to get some of the outcomes that the business is asking us? And there's a framework, a demand framework that kind of sits in there, which is really, really useful because often in IT, and I'm no different here, we get excited about things and we just want to take into the business all the time. Hey, we've got this. What this starts to do is it gets that balance right. So it starts to have a better level of conversation with the business to say, well, what objectives are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to, stand up new revenue streams, or are you looking to stabilize? Is our focus on compliance? And then align all of what technology brings to us and be able to tie that together. So having that framework in place is really drive a lot of good value for our customers. And then obviously just around the others is really about innovation. So what are the cool things that we can then start to bring into the business that perhaps they haven't thought about. So not meeting their demand, but looking in on the business and saying, look, there's some really cool features out here that technology is bringing to us. And we want to set up some proof of concepts, and we want to set up some things to really test and see how far we can take things, but in a more controlled way, rather than, IT going off into their own kind of room and building stuff. It's just this whole alignment between business and IT. So we call that our modern service management framework, and it certainly ties back to and supports, the Gartner CX pyramid. But yeah, we have a lot of conversations with our customers about that, and educating them on ways in which they can size and sequence activities to really bring them value over the next 6, 12, 18 months.
Nice. Yeah, it seems really efficient. So what impact has the shift to a more mature IT environment had on overall business performance?
When I was in Las Vegas a couple years ago, I think the best kind of way that this was spoken to me about was probably from the Virgin Trains in Europe. Their CIO at the time said that he wanted to become an invisible CIO. And it just kind of resonated with me. And I think that's probably answers that question beautifully. It's when technology kind of goes away, or it's just so well blended that it's not a thing anymore, that it's just a way of working. And I think that's really answering that question is that's where we're heading with technology. So we've moved from this kind of big old kind of cost center to a clumsy kind of partner in the business. I think that's really where we want to be able to get to. And I like that kind of that thinking about becoming invisible from a technology perspective, that things just work. All the noise is gone. It's just a very smooth line, and the business value is most important. Hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah. So, I mean, what are the next steps in the evolution of IT services at the companies you're working with?
Absolutely. Look, I think the majority of our customers either in that kind of middle block where they know that they need to improve, and they're really needing some expertise to come in and help them, as I said, scale and size and build these programs of work that are going to help them to achieve that. I think we often got enough momentum, they've got enough capability, got enough substance in behind them that they can operate themselves, and they're talking at another level that they want to use all these foundations that we've helped them to build and go to another level with the business. So I think that's kind of where we sit. We typically wouldn't then take the organization on that next part. We really kind of help them build those foundations. I think they start to engage organizations like yours to take them to that next level once they've got those kind of foundations in place.
And so how do you see the future of AI and cloud shaping IT service management across various industries?
Absolutely. Look, it's moving at fast pace. And so it's exciting. I think the major IT service management platforms, acquiring AI, there's a massive merging going on. I see the future being very aligned with the business, but also seamless. So what we used to think about as components won't be components anymore. It'll just be blended. I think is probably the best way that I can say it. So you'll have a business service that's being offered to even out to an end customer. The way in which that's delivered, the service delivery around that is completely seamless. So I see that being really the future. These kind of clunky components that perhaps are going to hold it back have gone, and that whole merging of multiple components has become really seamless together. And it's really what we're seeing with cloud in particular.
Yeah, so it's a future I'd like to see. So
absolutely, it's exciting. It's exciting.
So what lessons have you learned from working with these businesses that would be applicable to other businesses who are looking to enhance their IT operations?
Sure. Look, I think it's about taking a pragmatic approach, and we typically talk about sort of 3 levels of maturity. Obviously, getting the foundations right, getting key controls it's worth the effort. And we move to the next layer, which is really around the integration layer. So that's ensuring that all of your ecosystem, all of your service providers that provide often critical services can plug into the way in which you work. It's very, very complex now, and sometimes shudder when perhaps a large vendor or a large service provider, say for example, Microsoft goes down, and it doesn't happen very often, But the CEO is calling CIO to say what's going down, and the CIO is going, well, it's out of my hands. It's bigger than us. It's at a global level or it's at a regional level. This is happening. I question what value is CIO providing at that level. They want to understand what's going on, and it is out of their hands, and it's complex. And those service providers landscape and being able to understand that is hard. But when you've got your integrations right, not so much at your major providers, but those little ones, they can understand how you work in your environment. They can support you a lot more as well. And then finally, once you've got your integration leg in place, you can start to move to innovations. So this is really where you start to have some fun in terms of, you've got your house in order in such a way that you can start to plug things in over top seamlessly, effortlessly, at pace. So the learnings I've had is, build it in those three foundations. Get your foundational layer, get your integration layer moving and working, get your service providers plugged into the way you work in your ecosystem. And then finally, you've got the opportunity to really innovate.
Great. So I understand you've got a bit of an offer for our audience listening today. So could you give us an overview of that?
Absolutely. If everyone's listening today, we want to share with you our effective ITSM implementation framework. It's an ebook. And within that, you have an understanding of many of the things I've been talking about today around, giving you a high-level implementation approach, looking at the 4 key elements of effective service management. We're going to provide you in assessing your organizational capacities and also determining where to focus and some of those key focus points. So you can download that complimentary at servicemanagementspecialist.com/ESME book. So jump on there and download that, and please feel free to reach out to us if you've got questions or thoughts. Happy to share that with you today, Mark.
Fantastic. So if you'd like a copy of Kirk's guide, we'll put a link down below. I think that brings us to the end of our session. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Kirk for joining us today. Kirk, it's been great having you on the podcast.
Mark, I really appreciate the opportunity, and anytime.
And so our viewers, remember that if you're using Google Cloud to power your AI strategy, you can head over to firney.com/calculator and get up to 10% off your cloud bill, and get a review of our 24/7 support options as well. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.